This is Hardcover Hearts. This is my week of reading wrap-up where I talk about the books that I read this week, what I'm currently reading, and then potentially could read next week based on my mood. So I'm still doing my language immersion thing where I'm trying to watch television shows and movies in French and Italian to kind of get the language a little bit more cemented in at different levels, of course. So I didn't have as much time, but I still completed 2 books this week. The first book was a really big surprise to me. I've seen a few people on Instagram talk about picking this up, and I have to admit that from the description, I wasn't that enthused by it. I thought, you know, could be okay. The book is called The Sentence, and it's by Louise Erdrich. Now, I have read 2 books from her before, and one I really liked, and the other one just didn't work for me, but could have been the genre because I'm not really a dystopian person. The one that didn't really work for me was The Future Home of Living Gods. And the one that did work for me that I liked very, very much was The Roundhouse. She is an Indigenous American writer and centers everything around Indigenous American culture. And I just think she does an incredible job. You just feel immersed, and it's familiar, but it's unfamiliar. There's always new things to glean. And she just is a good writer, just a really good writer. But I wasn't sure if I was going to like a story about a bookshop, independent bookshop that was being haunted by a ghost of a customer. I just thought, that sounds a little twee, a little cutesy. I was kind of surprised that she was picking something like that. And I should have known better because it's much more than that. We open, and it takes a long time to get to that place too. You know, what the hype around this ghost in this indie bookstore. When we open, we meet Tookie, and Tookie is a real kind of badass. She does what she wants to do. She's getting involved in bad relationships, making really bad choices, and one of those bad choices lands her in jail. And it's when she's in prison that she ends up really exploring literature and learning to read deeply into backlists and reading the classics and all of that. And when she gets out, she's given a job at an independent bookstore in Minneapolis. And the time frame is 2019 around through 2020. Now, I wasn't really thinking about the place or the timing. And it actually plays a big part in this. So if you know anything about Minneapolis, you know that there was the George Floyd murder happened there. So a lot was going on in Minneapolis. You already had the pandemic going on, and then you have all of this social unrest and protests, and the community really feeling like this is it. We can't let this happen again. So there's a very interesting aspect where this independent bookstore, as well as her home environment, gets kind of pulled into social justice. I don't want to say too much about this book, but the themes are of community, of who owns what stories, of what family looks like, what activism looks like, what expropriation looks like. All of these things are explored, and it feels like it's a lot. And I was with it, but there was just one element that really took me out of the story, and it really, in hindsight, it shouldn't have. It just was a bridge too far for me to go on. I liked it. I liked the chances that she was taking with the book. I'm glad I read it. It made me think about a few things. And so it takes you on a ride. It really does. So if you're okay with a book surprising you and maybe trying a little too much and maybe not landing exactly where you would want, but you need something different and something that's unique, this might be a good book for you. And then I cannot be more pleased to hold this up in a different way. Yes, you all, I finished volume 4 of In Search of Lost Time, Sodom and Gomorrah by Marcel Proust, and this one is translated by John Sturrock. After holding this up for so many months, I hit a stride yesterday, and it was just like racing, and I just thought, I'm just not going to put it down. And I told my husband, I'll be in bed late because I'm not going to stop this until it's done. I feel winded. I feel like I've got my sea legs under me. I'm just going to keep going with it. And I did. I finished this late last night. I have to say, I adore the first one. I think Swan's Way is remarkable. It's a quiet meditation. It's sensual, textural, poetic, charming. But this is, it's like we both understand a little bit, and we can kind of be a little looser now. He is a little looser with the characters, and this is by far funnier than the other three. We understand the characters more. I think all of the backstory that's led up to this makes some of the interactions in some of those boring ballrooms and salons of fin de siècle Paris so much more interesting. We understand all the social climbing and the alliances and allegiances that different people have. We really get into the Dreyfus affair and the impacts of where people decided to stand on the issue of Dreyfus and his arrest, and all of the things that came out about the trial and the way it was really pushed, that he was pushed to be seen as guilty when he was not, and the splits that put in Parisian culture, and how it allowed anti-Semitism to kind of rear up in Paris, and the effects that had on Swan, one of the main characters in this series. This I've said it before, but this is such a gay book too. We have multiple gay storylines in this book, and some are funny, some are sad, some are really poignant, but to have multiple, to not just have one, but have multiple, and have them done with respect, as any other storyline would be done, I loved it. There's funny scenes, like laugh out loud funny scenes. Really interesting characters pop up here. And like I say, I think that Marcel has given himself a little bit more space to explore with this one. It's less controlled, and I liked it that much more. I think this is my second favorite so far. So could not be happier to be standing here saying, after all this time. And you may be wondering, like, Sarah, what the hell? Why did it take so long? And it finally dawned on me. These editions, so this is the Penguin Modern Classics edition, has no chapters. There's no chapters. And so it's like Duck's Newburyport. You may have paragraphs. Yeah, so not Ducks in the sense that there's no paragraphs. But you have that same feeling of just like unending. You don't know where to stop. It's really hard to know where to kind of back out and give yourself a break. And that becomes overwhelming. And so this is the fourth volume of that. So that's why it is really challenging to read this. And then his prose is different. You know, you have to kind of figure out how to read him, because he'll go off on these very, very long tangents and has very, very long sentences. And dialogue, you know, there's a scene in this where there's a professor who loves to tell everyone about the history of the names of the places that they're in, and the history of the names of the people, and he just will go on and on and on. And you feel the pain because Proust goes on and on. It's not enough for him to tell you that this happened. You have to suffer with everyone else. But things like that are really, it's funny. I enjoyed it, and I'm just so glad that I finished it. So those are the two books that I read. Of course, that means that I picked up the next book in the In Search of Lost Time series, but look at this. It's thicker. It's even bigger. I thought, no, this is Volume 5, The Prisoner and the Fugitive. So it's really 5 and 6, thank goodness. And this is translated by Peter Collier. So I just started this because I will finish this year for sure. So I have this and one more after it. So keeping the party going, reading this now. He's returned to Paris with someone that he may love, may not love, but he absolutely does not want her to love anybody else. So this character is just like the most obnoxious, the most obnoxious entitled character. Then let me tell you what else I read. I have been continuing on this project. This is The Years, Virginia Woolf. I'm reading this with Elizabeth of Bookish North. This is our second to last Virginia Woolf novel, and so we've spent a year reading all of her novels. I liked the first section a little more than the second. There are a lot of characters, and she hasn't done, in my estimation, I don't understand them as much as I did in The Waves. In The Waves, you knew, even though you were moving from one character interiority into another character, you really got a sense of who each of those characters were, and within a few words, sentences, you understood who you were embodying and whose voice you were in. It's a family, and you just don't have the same. I'm not getting the same vibe. And there's a lot of things that she's telegraphing but not telling us. And so Elizabeth and I are trying to figure out, would we know it in the time? Like if you said that someone's going to a Trump rally today, you would expect a certain type of politics. A Bernie Sanders rally, you would expect, it's like a shorthand for kind of explaining a whole bunch of other things. And we're wondering, is a lot of what she's doing feels like that. Like we don't know what the reference is because of all the years between when this happened and now. And we also, neither of us live in England, so we don't have that historical legacy. But we also aren't sure how many British people would know some of these things. So it's interesting. We're trying to piece this together. Still unclear. I'm halfway through. I need to read the next section today and check in with her shortly on this. And then Leo finally got his copy of To Paradise, Hanya Yanagihara. So I mentioned last week that I was a little trepidatious. I was waiting for him to get his copy. That was one of my Christmas gifts to him, and I had it pre-ordered, and then it literally just got to him. So that was a big fail from our English friends at our English favorite independent publisher and bookstore. But he has it, and we jumped in on Friday and started reading it. I mean, literally, I checked out at 5:01, logged off my computer, and jumped on my couch and popped it open and started reading. We've already checked in on our first check-in. The book is broken up in 3 kind of big chunks, and each chunk represents its own time period with a set of characters and something that's being explored. Everything connects to this one house, so it's this one house in different time periods. And the first time period was an alternative history. So it was a time where it was kind of a free nation, and this nation was not the United States was parceled into all of these different factions. This faction was really great for women and gender and sexuality. So it was formed by the utopians, and marriage was equal between men and women, men and men, women and women, but race was still a problem. And so the country would allow Black people who were escaping from slavery to cross through, and they would actually help them and support them in crossing through their states, but they were not given any kind of citizenship or recognition within their states. They're not allowed to be slaves, and they're not allowed to be servants and indentured, but they weren't given access and free rights. And you see this kind of very elitist utopian vision of sexual liberation, but without any of the other things at play. And at its heart is a love story of this one man. And what I love, Leo said it really well. He said, you know, at the end it ends in this abrupt way, and we don't know what happened to the character, but we do know that they are on their way to what they consider to be their paradise. So he said it's to paradise. It's not in paradise, but it's the aspiration. And then the second is set, it feels like maybe in the 80s or 90s. Not really sure yet. It's a little vague. And same house. And we have a couple, older white man and a younger Hawaiian. They live together as boyfriends, and they have an event one evening for the older gentleman's first lover who is dying of AIDS. This is right before he is going to leave to Switzerland to have euthanasia, legally assisted suicide. And it's interesting so far, but that's as far as I've gotten. Not very far through. I would say a little over a third. I'm liking it. Leo is loving it. I'm liking it. I'm not seeing too many red flags yet. There were some things that didn't really come together in the first one, but there was a lot of heart. I didn't really like the first character, but I could tell there's stuff I'm missing that I haven't put together yet. The first section felt very Victorian. So wanting to kind of think about that a little bit too. I have a feeling this will be something that he and I are going to be talking about for not just for the check-ins, but after as well. So I can imagine we're probably going to finish this pretty quickly because it does read very, very fast. She's pretty fluid with her writing. And then the last thing that I'm reading is a digital arc that I have. I mentioned this last week. It's Portrait of an Unknown Lady. It's a work in translation from Buenos Aires, Argentina. And it's by María Gainza. And the translation is by Thomas Bunstead. I haven't spent any more time with it, but still really enjoying it. It's a contemporary novel about a woman who gets involved in the art world. And she's kind of a misfit, but she gets taken under the wing of this really powerful woman who knows everything about art, supposedly has like the best eye. And she is really taken under her wing when she exposes that she's been authenticating forgeries and allowing them to kind of go through the system. And she has a whole band of misfits that she is working with. She dies very suddenly. And now the question will be, does our narrator kind of step into that void and take over? Or does she use this as an opportunity to back away? I think we all know where this one's going, but I'm enjoying it very much so far. But other than that, I think for next week, I'll definitely be deep in Proust. Definitely reading more of this, and I'm also trying to prep for the BookTube Prize, which is coming up. So that reading list is going to be available at the beginning of February. And I need to talk to Robert because I don't know which side I'm going to be judging in, if it's fiction or translated fiction. But I'm really looking forward to helping judge again this year because it's just been a wonderful experience the last 2 years. So that's it for me for now. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a great week of reading ahead, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye.